Very common request is to take studio photographs and replace their background. Here we have a picture of a little girl on confirmation day, and the request is to put her in front of the church where she was confirmed. Now, it's not just as simple as cutting her out and putting her on the church because of the translucency of the veil. We wanted to be able to see a little bit of church through it, just as if she was actually standing there. So, you need to use a little strategy here. First of all, try to imagine what the mask would look like if she was going to be on a new background. Imagine what's going to be completely replaced. Well, that would be the studio backdrop and little hollow areas by her arms, meaning those areas need to be pure white on the mask. She is not going to be replaced, meaning those parts of the mask need to be pure black, and the veil needs to maintain its original tonality and texture. So, what I do in an instance like this is I start with the pen tool to outline the outside of the figure. That's a good tip. Always start by outlining the outside of the figure, and notice I've also pen tooled inside the hollow areas. Once I've made the path, I can come and fine-tune this selection, which is going to make the composite better. So there, fine-tuned that. Good. Now, what you want to do is take the outside path and turn it into a selection. And I'm going to go to the Channels palette and save that selection to an alpha channel. Now remember what I said, the background has to be white, so I need to choose Image, Adjust, Invert. And now, here's the challenge. I need to get the veil into this mask. So let's look at the three channels we have here and see which one has the greatest clarity. There's not a big difference, but I'm going to use the green channel because in most cases it has the best tonality. So, I have a path for the veil, which I'm going to activate because I want the calculation only to use the veil information. So back to the channels, and I'm going to name this alpha channel girl, or else I'll get confused. And now go Image, Calculations. So my first source is going to be the veil. You can see that green coming through. My second source is the little girl. And then you can see I had an active selection. The mask button was checked. If the mask button isn't checked, the whole background gets wiped out. But you can check the mask button, and one of the options is to use the selection to influence where the change is going to take place. Now to add this light information to the dark, you can use Screen or Add. I'm going to use Screen in this case and click OK. We drop that selection. Now, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go back to RGB and double check something because I noticed something on this alpha channel. Let's go look at it. You see her little crown here? That needs to be solid. That's her hair. So by double checking it, I'm going to take a few moments to refine this alpha mask by turning on the View column and using a small white brush to clean up these edges, and then a small black brush to add that crown. And taking a few minutes now to get this mask perfect is going to save you a lot of heartache later. These are little hiccups caused by the pen tool. And I'm just working on the mask. I'm using the Wacom tablet to fine-tune it and navigate through the image so quickly. You just hold down the space bar and you can scrub through the file. Check up there, I missed a little piece of her dress, so I tap X, just get that to go in. Okay. Now the crown needs to be solid. So I'm going to make a larger brush, paint over this area because that's all her hair. I'm going to turn off the eyeball view column because I can see that that soft brush might cause some problems. So I'm going to change my blending mode to overlay and paint over that area. I'm actually going to leave a few of those little details, little translucent. There we go. That's going to work very nicely. So here's my mask. That's looking very good. I'm going to return back to RGB. I'm going to note to myself that this was alpha 5. So I'm going to have to load that mask. Now, let's bring that church over. I'm going to tap V to activate my move tool. And here's the church. Now, this is going to serve as a background plate. Let me go to my layers. It's a background plate. I can see that the file is a little smaller, but I'm going to scale it up. Yes, it'll become a little softer, but since it's going to be in the background, I'm going to soften it even more. So I'm not that worried about any softening that the transform is going to add. But first, let's see how that mask is working. I'm going to load alpha 5, Command, Option, or Control Alt 5, and click on the mask button. And let's zoom up and see how we're doing. See, I can see Vale and Church. It's beautiful. Now, to transform, I need to transform the church. You want to be careful. Always check your layers palette. See the little chain between the layer and the mask? I want to unlink that because I don't want to transform the mask. I need the mask to stay in place. Holding down the Shift key to maintain aspect ratio, and I can position her by that church. Okay. And now I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to move the church. And you watch, and you'll see that the church is actually going behind the veil. That's really beautiful. Now, to force the church further back, there's two things you can do. Two visual attributes you want to work with. The first one is blur. Move it back with depth of field. And the second one is darken. Now before you do that, I recommend that you double this layer just in case the blurring and the darkening doesn't work and you want to get back to the original. So I'm going to choose Filter, Blur, Lens Blur. I'm working by eye. I'm just watching, seeing what's nice. I still want the church to be recognizable. And I've increased the lens blur to push that church back. So I'm going to undo that. You can see that difference. Now if it's too strong, we could use the Edit Fade command, and that'll cut down some of the strength of the blur. But you have to use the Edit Fade immediately after using the filter. That's a matter of taste. I'm going to soften that a little bit. And I'm going to darken down the church and lighten her up. And that will give the image even more visual depth. So I only want to darken down the church, so I need to hold down the Option Alt key as I choose my Curves command. And in order to darken image elements, we always use the Multiply blending mode. So I'm just going to click OK. See how much darker that already became? Click OK. If that's too dark, because there certainly wasn't such a dreary day, we can just back off on the opacity. Now if I want the church behind her to be a little lighter, as if there was a little spotlight, I would use my gradient tool set to foreground to background radial, and wherever it's black there will be no darkening effect. So you see that difference? I'm going to start right by her chin, and now watch the difference. Very subtle, but it gives the image a little bit more light. And you can just redo those gradients. I'm going to shift click on the layer mask to turn it off. You see that little bit of difference gives her a little bit of separation. That works really nicely. Now let's lighten her up a little bit. She's a little dreary, so I'm going to add a curves adjustment layer and add a little bit of contrast to her. I want to be gentle with the curves. There, that's better. I'll zoom into 100% so you can see what difference that makes. Makes the image as bright as her smile is. And now, finally, I'm going to sharpen parts of the picture where I want the viewer's eyes to go. That would be her eyes, probably the necklace, the book for confirmation, maybe some details on the dress. To do that, there's many ways to sharpen a file in Photoshop. One of my favorite methods is duplicate the layer you want to sharpen and use the Filter, Other, High Pass. Let me zoom in on this. And images with fine detail, like facial features and the necklace, you can use a low radius. What it's doing is it's finding the edges. I'm going to click OK, and this is a neutral gray. And the three blending modes, overlay, soft light, and hard light, are invisible to that gray. Let me turn this on and off. You can see that sharpness come in. It's very delicate, but that's professional image editing. Now, I don't want the whole picture to be sharp. I just want her eyes and the cross and the book to be sharp. So I'm going to add a layer mask. Layer, add layer mask, hide all. And then simply paint with a soft white brush, make sure it's set to normal, over the areas that you want to be in focus. Do her eyes a little bit, the cross, maybe the details of the dress, and come down here to the little booklet that she received. Get some details. The dress is very pretty. And now let me turn off this layer and just watch her eyes for a moment. And it's that little bit of sparkle that just really helps that portrait come to life. So, in a few steps, she's not in the studio anymore. She's out by the church, and it's very beautiful how you can see the church through the veil. So what you want to do is imagine the mask. Imagine what needs to be white. What needs to be replaced has to be solid white. What needs to be kept has to be solid black. And then the areas in between you would find on one of the three channels and image calculate them into the mask. And once the mask is done, the rest is really up to your creativity and personal vision to create a final piece which the family is going to be very, very happy with.